Pacers winning streak is over. They fall to the Thunder. It was close till late. Lots of guys were great. Obi Toppin got hurt, but the story of the game, Tyrese Haliburton, 6 shots, 4 points. They needed more from him. We'll break it all down with Derek Kramer today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Friday. Congrats, you made it through the weekend. Welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, much to discuss from Pacers Thunder. And for the first time this season, a post-game podcast with a guest. Let me know what you guys think of this. Couldn't go guestless this week and really wanted to try this. Derek Kramer is going to join us to talk Pacers Thunder. Fun game. Pacers ahead by 4 in the final 5 minutes. Tied with 2.5 minutes to go, but can't get it done. SGA was amazing. Pacers had some good offensive stuff happen, but what they did not have good happen is Tyrese Haliburton struggled. 6 shots, 4 points. What was going on there? Why couldn't they get him going? What is that? What does this game signal about the Pacers level? Where is everything with Obi Toppin's injury? How will the Pacers have to adjust? Derek and I break it all down. Let's just get right to it. We haven't talked about this game enough since we sat next to each other the entire time and shared our thoughts for the entire 2.5-hour experience. But Derek Kramer, Mr. iPacersblog, is here to talk Pacers Thunder. The week of Derek last week has been split into the week of Derek's because I am terrible at planning when NBA games are going to happen and when I'll be available for a podcast. Derek Kramer, that was... This is so interesting to me. This should feel like such a, they were tied with the best team in the NBA late. Like they probably should have won. Maybe don't feel good about it, but not the worst loss ever. Instead, the main story makes it feel very strange, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of like you said, like 2.5 minutes left. The game is tied and you're playing the number 1 seed in the West. Like that should make you feel like pretty good about how your team is playing. But then you look at your best player and, oh, wait, he only took 6 shots and only scored 4 points. So, yeah, it's a very, very weird game that, like, that happened and that they had, like, such a decent chance to win at the end. But it's one of those odd nights that Haliburton's had a few times this year.
Yeah, that is going to be the hardest part of this to really walk through, is that part of the reason he took 6 shots is because the alternate options were working. Right? Andrew Nembhard was good, very good. And Pascal Siakam was awesome to start the game. He had 3 threes before the Thunder scored at once, like at all, right? And Myles Turner had some nice moments, making Isaiah Hartenstein move around in the second half. And Ben Mathurin got going, and Jarris was special in the fourth quarter, and TJ McConnell was quite good in the second half. Like, they had stuff that worked. It's not like they needed Tyrese Haliburton to be better, but 6 shots is just not that. That's too few. That is just, I tweeted at halftime. It's great. The Pacers are ahead by 8. They should feel good about that half, but it won't matter. If Tyrese Haliburton doesn't get going, the Thunder are going to have a chance to come back, and they did. And the reason we were given, and I actually think this makes sense. I was sitting next to Derek, and he can confirm I said this during the game, was Lou Dort was on him. And Lou Dort's a very good defender, one of the toughest guys in the league to go against. Now, he should shoot more than 6 times against anyone in the NBA. They went to 2 times late in this game. Tyrese Haliburton with the ball, Siakam screens, and J-Dub was on Siakam in the second half. Hartenstein was in the first half, and they got nothing out of that. Their 2 best play actions, they got nothing out of that. One possession ended with a tough Siakam post fade he missed. The other one actually got all the way around to Mathurin for a drive, right? That's why they were running so much through Nembhard Turner, because Nembhard was getting good shots against Wallace, and that was harder for the Thunder to do their switching stuff. Like, I got why the Pacers were doing it, but that 6 shots and 4 points is just not even close to enough from your star player. Like, they needed way more from Tyrese Haliburton. Even if I got what they were doing on a micro level, on the macro level, that's not going to cut it at all. The other team started 45.
Yeah, it's just like that's not what you want to see from your star player. It was clear that like there was some strategic element to like them trying to do it. Like Carlisle says, it's just like they wanted to be as random as possible. And like,
I get that.
Sometimes, yeah, and sometimes the randomness, like the ball doesn't get to everybody. So like Haliburton's 6 shots is way less than every other starter. If you're truly playing random, like those things can happen. But like it's just like that's your best offensive player. Like he's had hard matchups in the past. Like is Lou Dort that much better than like Drew Holiday? Like we've seen Ty go off against Drew
Yeah.
Holiday. We've seen Ty go off against Derek White. We've seen Ty go off against all these different guys. And there were even moments in this game like Lou Dort didn't play the whole game. He was like Casey Wallace is another great defender, but he was guarding Ty like while Dort had that little injury scare when he kind of blew a tire on that fast break layup.
Yeah.
So like it's just one of like bizarre. And then like we mentioned during the game, like it feels like it's going to come down to like Ty's going to get one shot at a clutch three, and whether or not it goes in, like that's going to end up deciding it. And like he made those kind of threes on his rough games early in the season, but he wasn't taking 4 shots before he took it. Like he was like 2 for 12 or 3 for 10 or whatever. It's a lot harder to take that shot in the fourth quarter, which we both thought like when he took it with like 4:30 left in the game, like it's probably too early. There'll probably be another one, but he never did get another 3. He made a floater later in the game, I think, but I think he was 1 for 4 when he took that 3. And like, that's a lot harder to be in rhythm if you've only taken 4 shots in 30 minutes of play. So it's just a very odd, like strategic decision, which like, and that's the thing. They had 2.5 minutes. The game was tied. If they win the game, you don't question it as much. You're still a little like concerned and like, that was weird, but like, they almost beat the best team in the West. So it's hard to question it too much, but like you said, just 6 shots and 4 points that's too little, period, point blank.
Last year, he had 6 games he took fewer than 10 shots. Here are those 6 games. 1, he took 5 shots against Boston on January 8th. He literally got hurt in that game. He played 13 minutes. Got it. Makes sense. He took 6 shots against the Hawks 3 days before that. He played 25 minutes in that game because they beat the Hawks by 34. Got it. Okay. It's understood. He took 7 shots against the Pelicans on March 1st. Probably his worst game of the season last year. He had 0 points. Bad. Okay. Bad. He took 7 shots against Golden State on February 8th. That was during that stretch where he was only playing 3/4 of games. Got it. Okay. He took 8 shots against the OKC Thunder on April 5th. And he played 35 minutes in that game. So keep that one in mind as we continue. And the final one is he took 8 shots against the Charlotte Hornets on February 4th. He played 20 minutes in that game. That was when he was, again, returning from injury and playing like 20 minutes per game. So 3 of those games are injury excusable. The other ones are they won by 34. He was awful in New Orleans and was also being guarded by Lou Dort, right? This year, he's already at 5. If you remove the game he physically got hurt in last year, he's already at the same number as last year, although I get the injury context of all those. He took 7 in Houston. They got smoked. He took 8 in New Orleans on the first game in New Orleans when they lost. He took 8 in New York when they got smoked. He took 9 in Phoenix. They played great that night. And then tonight with 6, which is his season low, and he played the full game. So it's just very interesting to kind of contextualize how rare this is for him. And this season specifically, those games have not been good for the Pacers. And I think you're right, though. I think we're kind of overthinking this because they did play a good enough offensive game in general. Like they were up 4 with 4 minutes to go. But when you lose and it's 6 points from or 4 points from your star player, that's just not enough. It's just frankly not. Like when it came down to brass tacks, time for someone to step up and score, the Thunder's guy was awesome, right? That's really what it's about is those last couple minutes.
Yep. And like Andrew Nembhard succinctly put it and then apologized to you because he was so short in his answer. Like they made more shots than we did in those last 2.5 minutes. I'm like, Nembhard had a great, like he was creating great looks. Like he had that wide open right in front of the elbow, like his bread and butter shot. And it just didn't fall. And Shai was just ridiculous. But like I just saw something on Pacers Reddit where like Shai scored 6 points in the last 36 seconds. And the Pacers star player had 4 the entire game. So it's just like 45 points from SGA, 15 of 22. Like that's going to be hard to overcome any night, but especially when like your star offensive player kind of like purposefully, but whether it's purposely or whatever, like just you just can't only get 4 points from your guy like that. And like and it wasn't his minutes. I would say like it's not like it worked in his minutes because the Pacers were minus 13 in Haliburton's minutes, so you can kind of criticize it that way too, where they were, what would it be, +7 when in his few minutes where he was off the court. So
well, he was in there with the bench group when Toppin was hurt. And because he was not having a night looking at the rim, no one in that bench group could do anything. And that stretch, I think, really holds down his plus minus because the starters still worked. But I think you nailed it earlier that the loss really amplifies this. He took 9 shots in Phoenix. Now, to be clear, he made 4 threes that game. But he only took 9 shots that night. His shot volume was not the problem then because their offense was good. Their defense was better. They won. It was a big story of like, wow, look at Siakam. Look at the defense. Look at the balance. Like that could have been the story of this game if they beat a very good Thunder team. But when it comes down to that clutch time stuff, it mattered quite a bit. And I do feel like it's a little bit too big of a thing. Like the other part, like Luka Doncic, amazing player, right? To be clear, Luka kept shooting the whole time this was happening. Luka had 2 playoff games last year where he scored under 22 points. They were both against OKC, being guarded by Lou Dort in that second round of that series, right? He had a 31.6% from the field night in game 1 and a 30% from the field night in game 4. Those were 2 of his 3 lowest shooting percentage games the entire postseason last year. But this is not some made up thing that Lou Dort's like an amazing defender. Like I get how this is the reality that the Pacers got to. And again, the Nembhard stuff was working, but there were moments where Lou Dort was not in fact guarding him. You know how I know that? Because Lou Dort got hurt in the first quarter and left the game. And then that stretch where he was with the bench that I just described also happened and looked really ugly. So this is not just a Lou Dort thing. And it is somewhat a clutch time thing, but also not just a clutch time thing. Like they could have been up more earlier in the game. There's just so much to it that's just kind of strange. And for a guy that's had this was kind of an interesting game to me for this too. They played 30 games entering this one. The first 15, he was not very good. The last 15, he looked pretty good, like much better, much more capable player the last 15 games. The threes have been falling. The stats have been good. Some of the questions about his early season had been faded away in those 15 games. He was shooting 49, 41, 87 from the field with 20 points, 9 assist averages. Very good. But like this is like a new chapter of the season, and he starts it off just not a good game. And the Pacers needed him to just be a little better, but they couldn't get him going. And that kind of stinks because a lot of guys had very praiseworthy nights, but they don't get the lead at all because of this.
Yes. And I will say, like, with the randomness of it, there were a few times where like one extra swing pass might have found Haliburton, and it just like that one swing pass wasn't made. A few times where like I saw him like with his hands waiting for the ball and it didn't come. Like, so a couple more opportunities, but even then, like that's just a few, and he's still only taking 9 shots if he gets that, which still like isn't really enough either. So I will say that, but yeah. And I think maybe some of it, like if Lou Dort's also not playing, Alex Caruso is hurt. So then if they're going to put Casey Wallace, their best defender, on Ty, then it makes even more sense to kind of let Nembhard cook when he's already playing well, because now it's got an even lesser defender guarding him. Yeah. So like the strategy did work early. It just didn't last enough. I think the Toppin injury, like we were both talking about, like it was hard for us to focus on the game because we're like trying to cover the injury of it all and like getting all that stuff. Like it always seems like it's like how is a team going to respond to that? Like it seemed like it was a worse injury at first than it did. Like the whole team came out there like thinking something worse than a sprained ankle had happened, I would think. It was good to see him come back out there, but like that stretch where kind of the Thunder got back into it came right after that point, where it wasn't a double-digit lead anymore, and they slowly kind of poked away at it. That kind of slowed things down too.
Everybody, short little break. Got to talk to you about Robinhood Gold. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with a Robinhood Gold account can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. Those generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at Robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit Robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risks. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. Agreed. Much to get to on Obi Toppin as well. So we had to lead with that. That was the main story of the game. But the other story of this game was kind of a barometer game for the Pacers, right? They had won the 5 in a row. The first 2 were against bad teams. The 3 on the road were against medium to good teams. And this was by far the best team they had played since they started winning. Poor Thomas Bryant's first loss as a Pacer comes this way. They were up 4 late. They were tied with 2.5 minutes to go. They did not make a shot until there was 9 seconds left from that point on. But like in general, they played okay to good. Like, where does this game make you feel about how they were playing during the winning streak and how they played tonight? Because like they gave up 19 in the first quarter. I thought there were moments their defense continued to be good. Their offensive process, even despite Haliburton not playing well, was largely pretty solid. They got good bench contributions. How did you feel in general about this, despite, again, the result being lost?
Yeah, I think overall it's a positive. Like they competed with the best team in the West, and like that's light years away from what they look like playing the Hornets before the winning streak. So like it's unfortunate still that they couldn't finish it because of how hard the schedule is. Like we talked about, the reward for this hard-fought game is immediately going to Boston and playing tomorrow, and then they immediately have to play Boston again, and third game in 4 nights. Oh, and the Celtics are very unhappy with themselves currently because they've lost 2 in a row. So it's like the worst possible time to face them, and in the worst scheduling situation.
Do you think someone in the NBA office was like cackling when they put those 2 games on the calendar? Just like as hard as they've ever laughed.
I always wonder, like it has to be like a lot of just, I don't know, like the scheduling, being the person who puts that puzzle together is just like, that's insane to me. Like figuring out how to make every single thing work. Yeah. So yeah, I don't think the schedule maker was just like, hey, I found something that works. This is what's going to happen. Like, sorry, like this sucks for you.
Yes, it does. So like Pacers did do, when I meant by good offensive process stuff was whoever Hartenstein was on the front court was very involved and did a very good job. That was Siakam in the first half. He looked great. He hit a bunch of threes. A large majority of his points came in that half. I could literally look that up instead of just saying a large portion. He finished with 22, 13 of them in the first half. Myles Turner got that assignment in the second half. He was a screener instead. He had an off night from an efficiency perspective, made half his 2s, did well on the glass. Like they got a good front court game. And Nembhard was great, and Mathurin had his moments. And like they did, again, that is the best defense in the league they played. And they found ways to score pretty consistently all night outside of getting their star going. Like I think they have to feel good about that. I was thinking in the first quarter, man, I've got to write about defense. Like right after this game, like if they hold the Thunder down and win this, that'll be 6 in a row, and their defense is the story. And then the second half, their defense faded away. I think that was a big part of this too. They ran out of answers for Shai. Dort started hitting some threes. That was really what it felt like most of the second half. And the bench for the Thunder was really good. AJ Mitchell and Kenny Hustle were making plays. That was probably not something the Pacers had on their bingo card, but they defended well for portions of this game. Their offense, like I think in general, they've got to look back and go, dang, like we could have really showed the level we're at right now. But instead, that's not the case, even though I think this signaled about their level to me that was not just like an opponent-based streak of wins. Like they're actually playing better. Does it mean they're going to beat Boston either time? No. Does it mean they're going to beat the Bucks? No. But they have found something with the time off that they had and the level they've hit.
Yeah, you definitely have to be more confident in the way that they've played. I think part of the defense kind of falling off. Like I noticed after the game, like Nembhard only played 29 minutes. Like they're probably still being a little bit cautious with like there being a back-to-back tomorrow. With his knee, and then like SGA played 38. Like obviously SGA was killing everybody, but I thought like he really, really got it going in that third quarter stretch where Nembhard was on the bench towards the end of the third quarter. And like I think you noticed like that he looked at the bench and literally said, "I got this," or it looked like that's what he said. It's just supreme confidence from SGA, and like he was completely in rhythm, and the Pacers just had no answers for him for the rest of the night. Like the numbers are just insane for him. Like I think Nembhard like did a pretty good job in the first half on him, and like had his moments. They like the Pacers really did pretty solid against everybody else. At least in the starters, like they had some great moments against Jalen Williams. Like he was only 8 for 22. Like you'll take that every night. So like it was really just they had no answers for Shai, especially if Nembhard wasn't out there. And then once he got into a rhythm, there was just no stopping him.
Yeah, they matched up their minutes in the fourth, but I think they came in at a tie game. Maybe the Pacers were up 2. And then Shai was just awesome. I mean, as soon as he dotted that 3 in Mathurin's face, it was over. He had everything rolling for him. One more break here, guys. Got to talk about the good folks over at FanDuel. The NFL playoffs, they're almost here. The NBA is rolling, and it's never too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel. They're America's #1 sportsbook because right now, new customers over on FanDuel can finish the season strong as the NFL winds down with $250 in bonus bets that'll come your way if you win your first $5 bet. How about that? FanDuel, so many ways for you to pick up your own wins. Which player is going to score a touchdown? How many points is each team going to score? It is thrilling. Not only can you bet on who will win the game, but they also have their spreads. Who's going to score the first touchdown? How many points will each team score? So much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. The other big story from this game. Why did I do it, Derek? I did an episode yesterday talking about Aaron Nesmith's eventual return and what it's going to mean for the rotation. And I had to say a million times, well, whose minutes are going to go away if they remain healthy? How about one day later? That reality is not the case. Obi Toppin, the Iron Man, he's missed 1 game since the Pacers acquired him last summer. Ankle injury. Guys were slipping on the court for the first 15 minutes of this one. It was really strange. Lou Dort, like I said, got hurt at the beginning. Toppin tried to get in the play. He ran away from the play. He was hurting so bad. Helped off by the OG James Johnson. Then, with a left ankle sprain, plays through it. Opts to return in the second quarter. To his credit, noble, that's great. Probably should not have done that. He was running on his toes. He was clearly slower. It was just not the same level of Obi Toppin that you expect. And then he did not play in the second half. He only played 6:50 in this game. It did win his minutes. He did make both of his shots, but he looked different, right? This is bad. He was having an unreal month, right? And they're about to play 2 teams that you got the Pacers' speed advantage is like their identity thing that can help them against these teams. So first of all, could this have happened to a worse player right now? I mean, it was clear the bench had a lot of missing identity without him in terms of what they could do, who they were playing through. And second of all, what would you change? Are you just putting Jarris at the 4 and then keeping things with 9 men? How are you handling this?
Yeah, I think Nembhard would be. Well, there's multiple starters that could be the worst, but we saw the importance of Nembhard when he was out for so long. But with what to do, I think we'll keep seeing Jarris Walker, who we had talked about. Like I'm sure you mentioned on the pod too. Like it's probably his minutes that were going to go away, and he's played in every game this year partially because the Pacers haven't had their full rotation, so he's always finding these minutes. I think that's the most likely case. Like when the Pacers can play small, like they had been with Toppin and Siakam, they'll try to do that with Walker and Siakam. We'll probably see a little bit more of Thomas Bryant now than we would have otherwise. So it's a good thing that they have an NBA level player to play that backup center spot. It's going to be tough. He perfectly fits the system for what the Pacers want to do. Just gets out and runs, gets those early seals, does the leak out thing. And he's just been hitting shots so much better than he was at the beginning of the season. It's a really rough time to lose him with how well he was playing. And he's just the perfect bench piece for how they want to play.
Yeah, he's been their best back at 5 option this season. And him and McConnell just have this perfect natural chemistry that works pretty well, regardless of who the rest of their bench is. Early in the season, that wasn't as much the case, but that's returned with Toppin playing better. And now that Shepard's back, those three in particular, it's just like the perfect connection that they have that makes things click. And wasn't that the bench was clunky tonight? It's just like it was much harder for them to get the shots they wanted. And OKC's really good at defending anybody, but like a guy like McConnell, when they're switching the way they do and the way they're just so compact to the way they're connected and in the lane. It's just really hard to get in there. And McConnell tore up a zone, but in general, he had trouble really getting to his normal shots. It felt like in this one, he took 7 twos. That's fine, but with Toppin out, I would have assumed that number would be a little higher. Jarace Walker did carry the bench unit in the fourth quarter, but he did it in a way that I don't expect him to make those shots every game. So that'll be interesting is how they kind of it's not necessarily to me like obviously Jarace will play more. Great. Like they have a natural four to do it. And you're right. Thomas Bryant will also play more in the front court. This is great. They have the players to survive this. However long this absence may be, like ankle sprains get a little more swollen. I don't think he's going to play the first game in Boston. We'll see about the rest. But the real trouble is how they actually shape their bench to get enough scoring and spacing on the floor, because Toppin provided a lot of that for those bench groups.
Yeah, and credit to Jarace Walker. Like those were some awesome killer shots and huge moments. Like he scored those 5 points at the end of the third quarter that gave them the lead to start the fourth after it looked like they were kind of starting to lose it and had fallen behind by 4. And then hit a couple more just great shots in the fourth quarter to start things. Like he really had it going. It was awesome to see that dunk that he had in the first half too. Like if you get that kind of like physical aggression going through contact, like that's exactly what everybody wants to see with Jarace Walker. And like using the physicality, like his big body, and not just going up for those little touch floaters in the lane. Like that was awesome stuff to see from Jarace. But yeah, some of those shots were they're so difficult. You can't expect those kind of shots to go in every night. Yep. But if you see that kind of aggression, like that is what you want to see from Jarace. And it's another great opportunity for him, maybe playing more of his natural position, a chance to do that at the 4, where maybe we kind of see some things from Jarace that the Pacers are sure hoping for.
The big winner in the minutes race tonight was Ben Mathurin, who played 39 because he's like their most natural wing right now. With Nesmith out, and Shepard can do that stuff too. And he's going to play a little more, and he'll definitely have to play more, especially if Jarace moves up a position. But, Ben Mathurin continues to be the guy soaking up those minutes, and his defense and rebounding was good again. 3 assists, only 1 turnover, took in rhythm threes. He missed some twos he would love to have back, but I think he's going to keep playing about this much. They need him to, and, against a really good Boston defense, they'll need guys who can break it down at times, and it might need to be Ben Mathurin. It's just how it's going to be. Or they could just lean on Siakam a little more. I don't think that's necessarily the worst plan. It's how they beat the Celtics earlier this season, which is their proof of concept here. What else really stood out to you in this game? I mean, the first half, there was just so much that happened. Like you said, we were really distracted with the Toppin injury, and then like Myles left for a second and came back, and Jarace had the dunk, and the Pacers were defending really well, and then they weren't playing as well, and then some guys were playing awesome, and some guys were really terrible. It was so much to keep track of. And then the story ended up being not what I thought. It was just really wild.
Yeah, it's just lots of stuff. Like I'll give a shout out to Myles Turner. We haven't talked about him a lot, but I think his defense from the West Coast trip, like came home with him. Like this is like the best defensive stretch I think I've seen from Myles in multiple years. Like 5 blocks tonight, but it's not just that. Like he's constantly been in position, like altering shots, just like doing everything you like hope to see from a rim protector that's like been at this level before, but it has been a little while where he's been this consistent for kind of this many games. I'm really, really impressed with how he's played on that end recently. You mentioned Ben's kind of like taking those quick shots and not hesitating. Like that's exactly what they want to see. It's just the shots aren't falling right now.
Yep.
It's like, hopefully he figures out a way to just kind of get a shot going again. The numbers over the last 10 are like real low in terms of his shooting splits. So hopefully that changes soon.
Yeah, I agree on all that. Myles is on the best defensive run of his season. The team in general is on the best defensive run of their season, I would say. I'll probably still write about it, even though it's after a loss. How about the level they've hit on that end of the floor? They did just play the best team on defense in the NBA. But I agree with Mathurin, too. Like, that's a huge thing for him, and it's all about the blend. The blend. I should have trademarked the blend before last season. It's like the only thing anyone talks about with him correctly is like him playing his way versus the way the Pacers play and making that into one thing. And taking catch and shoot threes and rhythm is a big part of that. And he's been doing better, way better at that to me. But the inside the arc stuff's just got to fall at some point. And a lot of stuff could have gone a little better for them. Turner makes a few of his threes. Nembhard makes a few of his threes. Tyrese Haliburton gets up more shots. They might win it. Do you give him any chance against Boston tonight?
I think like the first game I think is going to be tough. Like I'll be impressed if it's like if they're similar to this game where they have a chance at the end.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a really hard game, especially like the Pacers beat them the last time. Like the Pacers should still be motivated to like they lost those games, all of the games in the playoff series. Like they're still going to be very motivated, but I'm sure the Celtics are equally ready to both end their short losing streak of 2 games and get their little mini revenge after the Pacers beat them last time. Teams are always a little extra motivated to not lose twice in a row to the same team. So I think the second game, I think, is their better shot. But 3 games in 4 nights isn't easy either.
Yeah, that's just as tough as it gets. I think it's going to be tough. I mean, for all the reasons we've laid out, and Boston's really good and has more motivation than normal. It's crazy that this is our first losing streak the whole season. Big prove-it games for Haliburton in Boston, right? Like as big as it gets for him. He got hurt in that series and like a chance to kind of just like, hey, I'm still doing this. Like he had a really good 15 games, and this game is what people are talking about, and they should be. It's the most recent one, and he didn't play very well. But like he was really good before that. And stars need ascending to the top is having as few of those poor games as possible. You know, Steph had his 2-point game last week, and it was a major story because it never happens to him. Like, what was it? It literally he had never had a game like that before where whatever happened, was it no made shots or something? Right. So obviously stars have bad games, but like cutting them out as many as you can is the goal. And so how Haliburton follows this up, I'll be telling as well. I have nothing else from Thunder Pacers, unless you do. It was a very fun game, despite the Pacers having a big cloud over it.
Yes, lots of fun things. Like you said, lots of things going on in that first half. The 22-7 start was just crazy. 13-0 before the Thunder scored. Just kind of disappointing that they weren't able to finish it. But like we said, that's the best team in the West. They're a very good basketball team. They've only lost 5 games in the season for a reason. But yeah, I got nothing else from this one.
I have my note about this being a freak. You and I called it a Freaky Friday game where Nembhard and Haliburton switched roles before halftime. Like it was clear they were doing this strategically for a lot of the game. So Dort was certainly part of it, but not all of it. It'll be interesting to see when they play OKC again. And I'll have to go back and watch last year's OKC game because seeing that he played 35 minutes and that one didn't shoot very much. Also, very interesting to me. Derek Kramer, thank you for the time. Where can people find you, your work? You had videos from this game, several other things covering this Indiana Pacers team.
Yes, you can find my stuff at iPacers.com. Follow me on Blue Sky, just at iPacers. Twitter at iPacersblog. All the things I'm sure if you hear my voice, I've been here enough. You know who I am at this point.
Hey, this is a 3-month gap for you. That's very rare. And a delay in our scheduling means I'm going to have to do it like a month and 10 days later for the trade deadline. So, whoops, that's my bad. Back tomorrow, shorter weekend episode talking Pacers Celtics round 1. I am on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony Ariz. This podcast is on Twitter at Locked On Pacers. Like I said, talking Pacers Celtics tomorrow. Maybe the Pacers can bounce back. If they can get a win or two before the new year, given their schedule, that'd be huge. Thanks for listening. We'll see you very soon.